Enrique Iglesias. What happens when the son of Spain's biggest superstar decides he won't use his last name and tries to break into music as a total nobody? That's the crazy true story of Enrique Iglesias, a shy kid who turned a secret hobby into global anthems, a new kind of Latin pop crossover, and a life built on his own choices. Before the stages and stadium lights, there was a boy in Madrid. Enrique Iglesias was born on the 8th of May, 1975, the youngest of 3 kids. His father, Julio Iglesias, was already a living legend. His mother, Isabel Preisler, moved through high society with quiet poise. On paper, that sounds like a golden ticket. In reality, it was complicated. When Enrique was a little kid, a terrifying event shook the family. His grandfather was kidnapped in Spain. Overnight, childhood turned serious. For safety, Enrique and his siblings were moved across the Atlantic to Miami. His father was on the road constantly. The person who steadied his world was not a bodyguard or a manager, but his nanny, Elvira Olivares, the kind of guardian who shows up every day, no matter what. Years later, when Enrique finally released his first album, he dedicated it to her. That tells you everything about where his heart sits. Miami gave him 2 educations. There was the official 1 hallways and homework at Gulliver Preparatory. And then, there was the secret 1 hours alone in a room, writing melodies nobody else heard. Enrique wasn't chasing applause, he was chasing relief. Music became the place he could put the parts of himself that didn't fit anywhere else. A school play gave him his first taste of performing. Little gigs at small restaurants around town came next. Still, he kept it off the family radar. Not because he was rebellious, but because he didn't want anyone, even the people who loved him, to nudge the wheel. This dream had to be his. He tried college, business classes, a smart, safe plan. But the pull of music got louder every week. You know that feeling when you're doing what you should, but your chest says otherwise? That, after a year, Enrique did the scary thing. He dropped out. Then he did the unthinkable thing. He took his father's last name out of the equation and started pitching himself as Enrique Martinez. No famous lineage, no shortcuts, just a voice on a tape. Who fronted the money for that first demo? Not a label, not a flashy investor. Elvira Olivares, the nanny who had raised him. Imagine how much you'd want to make someone proud after that kind of faith. The demo had a handful of songs, some in Spanish, some in English, and the intention was crystal clear. Judge me by the music. Labels passed, a few more passed, and then one in Mexico said yes. That yes cracked open the door. The debut album arrived in 1995 and exploded. In some places it went gold in a week. The numbers snowballed into the millions. Awards followed. Suddenly, the kid who'd hidden his songs was a headline act. Then came the second chapter, proof that this wasn't a fluke. The follow-up album hit hard. A world tour stretched far beyond the usual Latin markets. Night after night, country after country, Enrique learned to command not just a stage, but a sea of strangers, turning nerves into fuel. 1,999 brought the rocket booster, a single that was impossible to escape. It danced up the US charts and planted itself at No. 1. Doors that felt welded shut inside the English-language market kicked wide open. That same year, Enrique dropped his first English-language album and kept the momentum roaring with hits that owned radio and clubs. He wasn't visiting the pop mainstream, he moved in. Then came the moment that cemented who he was as an artist. The 2001 album that turned into a phenomenon. Enrique dug deep into songwriting and delivered massive singles that did more than climb charts. They attached themselves to people's lives. One ballad, in particular, became an emotional lifeline for millions. The kind of song people play at weddings, in cars after breakups, and during the hardest nights. That's when you know you've crossed from popular to permanent. He kept evolving. A rock-tilted record in 2003. a darker, edgier sound in 2007 with club-ready cuts that thumped through speakers worldwide. In 2010, a bilingual album proved what he'd always known about himself. He didn't have to choose between English and Spanish. He could live in both and make it feel effortless. A few years later, another era-defining project delivered dance floor monsters and a cross-cultural juggernaut that took over every party you remember from that time. The collaborations came like fireworks, each one finding a new gear. With Nicky Jam, he turned heartbreak into a worldwide sing-along. With Wisin, he dropped a pulse-pounding hit that ran up the charts. With Bad Bunny, he tapped a new wave before it was everywhere. And with Pitbull, he returned to one of his favorite lanes, the joy of movement, the rush of a packed night. All that public noise, but the private life stayed private. In 2001, during the shoot for a music video, Enrique met Anna Kournikova. The chemistry wasn't a rumor, it was visible from space. Instead of milking it for attention, they did the opposite. They kept their world quiet. Years later, they surprised everyone with twins, Nicholas and Lucy, and then welcomed a daughter, Mary. No reality show, no play-by-play, just a family choosing to live outside the echo. There were vulnerable human moments along the way too. In 2003, Enrique had a signature facial mole removed on doctor's advice. He handled it with the same grounded energy he brings to everything else. Do what you have to do. Keep moving. Make the next song better. And what about his father? People love a feud story. Reality is messier and more ordinary. Julio Iglesias has spoken with pride about his son's success, and Enrique has built a career that both honors and escapes that shadow. Not by copying the blueprint, but by taking a risk that could have failed spectacularly, starting from zero and letting the music speak first. If you zoom out, here's what you see. Enrique Iglesias didn't get lucky. He got intentional. He refused the easy route. He backed himself when there were more reasons to sit down than stand up. He trusted the woman who raised him. He took the scary door when the safe door was right there. And then, when the world finally listened, he kept changing language to language, genre to genre, so the music never went stale. That's why he's called a king in the spaces he dominates. It isn't just the hit count or the trophy shelf, it's the arc, the courage to ditch the famous last name, the humility to credit the people who carried him, the instinct to keep stretching even when the numbers said, "You've done enough." So, what's the takeaway from Enrique Iglesias? Talent matters. Work matters more. But the secret sauce is ownership of your voice, your choices, your circle. He could have coasted. Instead, he reinvented. He could have chased noise. Instead, he chased songs that last. If this story fired you up even a little, drop a like, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the one risk you've been avoiding that might change your life if you took it? And if you want more deep dive origin stories like this, you know where to find me.